I don't know. I don't know why I'm making this video, but like I feel like my husband and I are doing everything right. We both have good jobs. I'm a nurse. I'm a registered nurse. I work full-time. He works full-time. We just got paid this past Friday, right? We paid the mortgage. Bought some groceries. Put some gas in the car. And guys, it is Tuesday. And we have like $200 or $300 to last us until next Friday. Like, we don't live in a big house. We live in a little ranch. It's 1,100 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, us and our 2 kids. And like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm in school full time. I work full time. He works more than full time. He works overtime every week. I don't know what to do. I'm so stressed out. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Growing up, we were told, go to college, get a degree, work to support your family. Here we are. Did that. Now what? Now what?
All right, guys. So I want to talk about this pretty interesting conversation that happened on TheView between the cackling hens, in which they're going to discuss why millennials aren't having kids. Now, the reports show that the reason why is because of the current economic climate, aka Biden's economy, Bidenomics, right? So again, in response, millennials are basically saying, look, starting a family is out of reach. Now, here's the thing. This trend has been kind of going on for a while now, probably before Biden got into office, but it's definitely has accelerated and got much worse due to Biden's economy. And Whoopi Goldberg, in response to this report, is going to declare millennials lazy, right? Millennials are too lazy to work. And, every generation felt that way. And millennials just need to work harder. And I find it to be a fascinating conversation, and I want to react to it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Apparently, millennials and Gen Z have a much different view of the American dream than past generations. Data shows that soaring inflation, student debt, and limited room for advancement in the workplace has made them feel that milestones like affording a home, starting a family, excelling within the corporate structure are out of reach. Does every generation feel this way at some point? I say yes. What do you think?
Well, since we're sticking with our Clinton theme today, it's the economy, stupid. Like, my generation is the generation of the housing crisis, the financial crisis, 9/11. We've been in war basically my entire generation. You've got 45% of people ages 18 to 29 living with their parents. Our American dream's different. Doesn't mean other struggles didn't matter, but on the having kids specifically, I get it. Most of my friends, if they're not, married by a certain age, they're not owning homes at the same rate, and you don't want to have kids if you don't feel like you can provide that. My one piece of advice, though, to millennials who are holding off having kids because of the finances, if you're in a position, which is also expensive, consider freezing your eggs, because you could change that position later and want to. But no, it's hard. It is a very real struggle out there.
I think it's refreshing to see people enter parenthood so soberly, because I think for generations since the beginning of time, people get married, they just have babies because they're supposed to, and this is what we do. And then you see people like gay couples who fight so hard just to love a baby. And every day people are having kids that some are beaten and like not taken care of. And so to have a generation that says, I don't know if I can give them the life they deserve, I don't know if I'm capable of being a whole person and doing this, I say bravo, because it is not a slight undertaking.
That was my...
Yeah, so here's what I think about this. This is a fascinating conversation to me because I am a millennial. Okay, I am one of these millennials that don't have kids, and I'm being very strategic about when I want to have children, okay? And it's not because I feel like the economy is too terrible to have children. It's just that me personally, I think that there's something to be said about having more life experience. And today versus back in the past, I think a lot of people were encouraged to have children as early as possible and to get married as early as possible, because children were basically seen as an asset that could help out the family in regards to taking care of the family, feeding the family. You had a lot of kids that grew up working on farms that contributed to, actually taking care of the family and making sure that the family survived. It was actually a necessity to have kids in order to survive. This is why you had these big families, right? They were big families. They had farms. They grew their own food. They picked their own, crops or whatever, and they took care of themselves, okay? You needed kids to essentially be workers. But I think that things have kind of changed nowadays, right? In the sense that it's not that past generations weren't struggling or didn't struggle the way that, millennials say that they're struggling today, which I would argue that today, even despite the bad economy, that millennials are not struggling or don't have it as bad as people had it before in the past, right? I just don't believe that. I do think that millennials, people like myself, are recognizing that because times have changed, some people are making the decision to just be more strategic about it. Me personally, again, I only can speak for myself. I think that having kids at 21 years old, I was very immature. I didn't know much about life. And almost being 30 now, I know a lot more than I knew back then. And I think I would be a much better father today than I would be as a 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, even just 5 years ago. I think that the life experience that I have now would put me in a better position to be a father. Not just that, but also in other aspects as well too, financially, things like that. I think I would have been much worse of a father back then than today. Now, there's some millennials that don't necessarily look at it from that perspective. They're just blaming the economy. They're saying, well, the cost of living is too high. College is unaffordable. We can't afford a house. And I think to a certain extent, they have a point, because there's a lot of people that are struggling in Biden's economy. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. But first, I want to finish this video right here.
I take away. I mean, my generation, you got married, you tried to get a house, and you had kids. And this seems to be very intentional. They're thinking about it. And I agree with you, though.
Millennials are brilliant.
Your eggs start turning to dust. And so you have to be careful. And so if you're a young person and you have any kind of chance of freezing your eggs, which wasn't available to me when I was, your age, I think that you got to at least preserve the opportunity, because you may change your mind.
I'm sorry.
She said one kid is enough.
Yeah, well, but listen, every generation comes and wants to do better than their parents did. Every generation. But I'm sorry, if you only want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house.
Oh, and don't mention 4 days.
I feel for everybody that feels this, but I'm sorry. We busted our behinds. We had to bust our behinds because we didn't have the option
Y'all gave
of going
us the housing
back.
crisis, though.
Listen, we had all kinds of stuff.
No, it's true. But the one thing I'd say is millennials are statistically the first generation that's likely to do worse off than their parents. That's
Yeah, so every now and then, Whoopi, she'll say some things that'll sound kind of conservative, right? She's basically giving a pick yourself up by your bootstraps response to that. But here's what I think, right? I think that, again, the conversation is nuanced. I think that to a certain extent, you do have a group of millennials that are just being lazy, right? They are like, oh, I just don't want to work. I think that, I should just get paid, for no reason. And I want to be able to live off the government, and I shouldn't have to work a 9 to 5, and I should be given everything, and I should just be rich no matter what. Just because I am who I am, I don't need to put in the work. There are millennials that do feel that way, right? And those people clearly are lazy, right? And I do think that there is an element of that in our culture, in our society. However, I do think that there's another part of the conversation where there is some legitimacy to millennials that are saying, look, we don't want to have children, or that we want to put off having children because of the economy. And what really blows my mind is that when these people have these types of conversations, they never want to specifically talk about Biden, right? And the Biden economy, what we're experiencing right now, because, when it comes to housing and buying a house, it is unaffordable, right? It really is. I mean, the cost of housing is ridiculous, especially considering the interest rates, okay? It is significantly expensive to purchase a house just from the perspective of the cost of the house itself without the interest, without the cost of debt. And then once you factor in the cost of debt, it's ridiculous. It's crazy, right? But the reason why it's happening is because interest rates had to rise in order to try to deal with the inflation that the Biden administration significantly contributed to with the lockdowns and the excess spending in the Democrat policies, right? So now we're in a very weird situation where people aren't selling their homes despite the fact that housing prices are up because they don't want to have to go and buy another home considering the current interest rate environment that we're in, where interest rates are, 7-8%. So now you're stuck in a situation that if you want to buy a home, you have to buy it at an exorbitant price, okay, because nobody wants to sell their home. And if you're financing it with debt, then again, it's going to cost even more because the cost of debt is so high. Okay, when people complain about the cost of college, this is what the left complains about. They never talk about the fact that the reason why the cost of college is so high is because we continue to fund this system. Okay, these people literally want the government to pay for everybody to go to college when everybody shouldn't go to college. These degrees are worthless, a lot of them. Okay, the return on investment is not worth it. Okay, we have a culture where the government pays for people who shouldn't go to college to get useless degrees that they feel like they need to get because corporate America requires people get these degrees, even though these degrees don't actually really increase production and they're not actually really required to do the job, right? A vast majority of these entry-level jobs in this country that require a college degree don't actually really need a college degree in order to do the job well, right? You don't actually really need a college degree. But yet corporate America requires it anyways as a way to weed out people when it comes to the job market. That is a culture that has to change. When you talk about the student loan debt problem, okay, you have people getting into massive amounts of debt, chasing something that does not have a positive return on investment, but yet we continue to tell them to do that, right? When you talk about crime, it's funny because, crime being out of control in a lot of these liberal cities, the liberal explanation for it is, well, these people lack opportunity, right? The cost of living is so high. Everything, the economy's bad, right? So again, why don't they ever talk about the Biden administration when it comes to crime? Because if crime is a result of poverty in the economy, which is the leftist argument, then you really should be blaming Biden for a lot of the crime and destruction and chaos going on in these liberal cities. But yet they never do that, right? They always want to have these conversations, but they never actually want to point it back to the policies and behaviors that are promoted by the Democrat Party and the left, okay? Because you could lower the cost of housing by increasing the supply of housing, by rolling back regulations that basically disincentivize building more housing, okay? You could do that. You could lower the cost of college by basically defunding these colleges and saying, look, we're not just going to continue to pay for everybody to go to college, okay? We're going to just give a loan to anybody that wants to go to college when these degrees aren't providing a positive return on investment, right? You could actually, decrease crime and make it easier to prosper in some of these bad neighborhoods by being tough on crime, by locking up the criminals, by doing things in order to make some of these impoverished areas good places to actually do business, where businesses are going to stay in these areas, right? You could, but again, it blows my mind how when people have these conversations, especially liberals, they love complaining and saying, well, we can't do such and such and such, right? Millennials can't do such and such because everything is so bad. But yet they continue to vote for the things that made it bad, right? Or at the very least are contributing to why things are bad, right? Why they don't want to have kids. Again, I think that this is a very nuanced conversation in the sense that I don't disagree with millennials, because I am one of the millennials that say, hey, I want to put off having kids for various reasons. I want to gain more wisdom. I want to put myself in a better financial situation. I want to accomplish certain goals in life before I have children. And then at that point, I want to start a family. I want to do things, the traditional way. I think that's perfectly fine, right? I actually think that that's smart, okay? Because I think one of the problems that we have in regards to bad kids is that they have bad parents. And they have bad parents because, again, these people probably should not have been having kids in the first place, right? They had kids too early. They had kids before they actually had life experience enough to understand how to raise kids and to be able to provide for them in a way that was going to increase their chances for success, right? But again, you do have a certain demographic of people who say, well, I just don't want to work, right? I don't want to get a job. I don't want to take any responsibility or accountability for my outcomes in life, right? Again, there is a certain demographic of people who are like that as well, too. And I think that Whoopi is right in regards to those people. But at the same time, when it comes to people that are saying, look, well, it's the economy, it's the cost of education, it's housing, things have just become a lot more unaffordable. I want to wait until things are more affordable, or I just don't feel like, kids are affordable nowadays. I think there is something to be said about that, because I think that it's not just millennials or Gen Z feeling that way, but I think everybody's kind of feeling that way. And the reason why is because of the state of the economy. A large part of the reason why we're in this state that we're in is because of the policies that Democrats have pushed. And it annoys me when they always ignore the fact that people are feeling this way in the Biden economy, in an economy that is a result of Democrat policies and things that they push and that they supported. They always seem to leave that part out of it. They don't want to talk about it, okay, when it comes to having these types of conversations. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.